overview is that this project is to learn how to construct correlation network and apply it to U.S. senators. The senators research in this project will be from the 114th Congress, and there's 2 from every state, meaning there's 100 in total. Okay. So our main problem was to find the correlation between each pair of senators. There's, as mentioned before, there's 100 senators, and there's 4,050 pairs if you pair them up. And this project aimed to find which of the pairs of the senators are mostly commonly searched on Google. So our issue phase was, originally we were supposed to use and find the data using the Google API, but since there's a new policy, we couldn't use it. And so we weren't able to use it. We had to use different network software. So since there's a limited time, we had to use a smaller data set because 4,950 is too much. And the exact numbers, the amount of searches was not used, so we used a generated, randomly generated generator. But since it was generated, we used the numbers, generating numbers were close to the actual numbers not searched.
Okay, so originally what we did was we created a Java program that paired up all the senators together. And then what we did was, instead of using the Google Search API since that was deprecated, what we did was we used a sample data set that contained 15 different senators, and we manually searched the amount of Google results that popped up for them. And using that data set, the sample data set, we were able to create a standard for the larger data set with all the other senators. The random number generator used was something that used a Gaussian random function. So instead of just using random numbers, it outputted numbers from 0 to 1 in this fashion, where the closer you are to 0, the higher probability there is to receive it. So in this bell curve, this middle portion is most likely to happen, and the outliers are less likely to happen. So this allowed us to obtain data that was closer to what would happen in reality rather than having random numbers being generated. The data set was a CSV file, so it's just a file that is separated by commas. The first column represents the individual's party, and then the second column represents the name of the senator. And then the third and fourth just repeats that. The fifth column is the amount of Google searches that will pop up for each senator. Obviously, some of the numbers were generated through a random number generator, but some of them were real. And then the last one displays the correlation, which will be described after. Okay, so correlation values represent how closely related two parts are. In this case, the two parts would be the senators. These values range from 0 to 1 and are decimal values. And the closer the value was to 1, the more correlated they were. And the way correlation was found was, we found a range of normal values. So these are the values that were most likely to happen. So if you remember the bell curve, it would be like the middle portion where there is the largest portion there. So we found the range of values and then subtracted the minimum from everyone and divided by the maximum, which would create decimal values. Some of them were negative and some of them were larger than 1. These values were deemed outliers and were not used in the actual program.
So this graphs are actually made using Python and Network X. So Network X is the software that creates graphs, and using Network X we made nodes and a line connecting those nodes. So the nodes represents the senator's names, and the color of the nodes represents the party the senator was in. And anything if the nodes are connected, that means there was searches found using both of the senator's names. So since we don't have the actual data, because we use a random generator that is actually close to the number of searches that could be found, it would be hard to determine exactly which senators will be mostly searched. but we determined, or we expect that the ones who were running for the 2016 presidential elections will be mostly searched.
Okay, so that graph over there was our final network. It contains all 100 senators. You can see the red; those represent the Republicans. The blue represents the Democrats, and the single yellow is an independent senator. And this is just a smaller graph, so you guys can see what it would be on a smaller data set. You couldn't really see it before, but there were the names of the senators. And the decimal points are the correlation. So that decimal point over there is negative, so it is an outlier. Therefore, there is no edge connecting the two senators together. So that's why that whole circle is not blacked out. Instead, there are like white spaces.